Hello, everybody. Welcome back. I want to talk about ways that we can use our decks that aren't for divination because I found that there are some decks that I have that I absolutely love the imagery of, but I just don't feel drawn to work with them either in this moment or ever anymore. And I don't want to rehome them because I want to see the imagery in the art, but just don't feel called to work with it. So I have a couple of different ways that I personally reuse my tarot decks when they no longer fit in my divination practice. And I wanted to kind of share those with you just so that maybe you all could get an idea of ways that you could reuse your decks if you find ones that you don't connect with on a divination level but still want to have the imagery in your house. So the first deck I'm going to talk about is the Hush Tarot. So I bought the Hush Tarot around the time that it came out, and I loved the art and the imagery, but I don't feel called to work with it. It just doesn't. The associations didn't really resonate well with me. I didn't care for some of the imagery in the specific cards. Some of it just wasn't for me. So what I ended up doing instead is blacking out the titles just so that I first had the idea of making this into an oracle deck and just using it based on the imagery. But some of the cards are a little bit grainy. They look and feel out of focus for me. Like this one especially, there's some weird thing going on here, and it doesn't seem like the image is all that clear. It just looks not distorted, but it doesn't look in focus. It's like pixelated or something weird. And some of these images I didn't feel any intuitive hits from them, which made it difficult to use this as an oracle deck. So instead, I decided I was going to do something different because I love this artwork, but I wanted to use it. I didn't want it to just sit on a shelf in its box, not being cared for or loved. So instead, I took some blue tack and put it on the back of the cards in little corners, and then just put the cards that I felt drawn to up on the wall right next to my working altar space. And it added an amazing amount of color and atmosphere, I feel, to the room and to the area, and it really makes it feel much more magical in a way, because the cards and the emotion that they invoke is just so strong that it was really perfect. So that is how I've repurposed the Hush Tarot, and it's worked out really well for me. I very much enjoy having it on the wall, and I look at the art so much more than I ever did in the past, and it really just was the perfect thing for me. Another deck that I do that with is the Dixit cards. And so this is actually a card game, but I saw it on somebody else's YouTube. I don't know who. I'll try and find it and link it. I saw this on someone's YouTube channel where they took these cards and turned them into an oracle deck or an intuitive deck or something like that. So I went a little bit wild and I bought a couple of different they have expansion packs almost, and I bought a couple of different ones and I just labeled them from the pack that I got them from in case I ever want to put them back in their separate piles. But I love this artwork and I have so much of it now. This is an oracle deck. This is kind of a story deck that I've created. Hello. This is a story deck that I've created for inspiration if I want to write something creative but don't have a solid idea of what I want. I'll just shuffle these cards and then can create kind of a story from that. So I have this, I have another deck, full deck, I think it's almost 100 cards that I created from the Dixit cards, and that is for divination. I use that alongside my tarot sometimes. But I still had so many cards left over that I loved, but just didn't feel like they fit in either of the category of decks that I already had for this. When I was looking at them, I didn't feel inspired to write something. And because I didn't feel inspired to write something, they also didn't feel like they had a strong enough message that I could use them in divination. So instead, I took inspiration from what I did with the Hush Tarot and put these cards out in a formation on my wall as well. Another piece of art for my house. And these ones are just perfect. I am so obsessed with anything dragons, so I had to include the dragon card because I loved it so much and didn't feel drawn to using it in either of my pre-made decks. So this became another little art installation, and I have a ton of extra wall space. So I think that whenever I don't feel drawn to tarot decks, if there's enough cards in them that I still like and don't feel like rehoming the deck, then I'm going to repurpose it for art because these decks are beautiful and they deserve to be appreciated and enjoyed and seen. And if I'm not doing that by working with them, I think it's the least that I could do to enjoy the art in my everyday living space. And it does help put you in that kind of magical mood when you have these cards out and you know kind of that you've curated this. Because I don't use a whole deck when I am decorating the wall. I pick out, it's very intentional. So you could even make it into almost a spell of sorts or something and put only the cards that evoke the energy that you're trying to bring into that space or that you're trying to bring into your life at that time, and swap the cards out if you ever feel like they're not working anymore or if your goal in life has changed. You can do that. So another way that I repurpose my tarot decks is just laying them out on my altar and using them as reflection and as reminders and almost affirmations, just kind of like wordless affirmations. This is the Marguerite Peterson Tarot, and I love this deck. I think this deck is gorgeous, but when I first got the deck, I don't think that I was comfortable enough reading intuitively to utilize this deck as much as I could have. So it really kind of sat on the wayside for a while. But the one card that has always drawn me in is the Crone card. It's just gorgeous. And I love that Marguerite Peterson replaced the Hermit with the Crone because I feel like they have very similar energy, but the Crone feels so much more maternal and strong in the feminine way. than I feel the Hermit does. And that was the energy that I have really been drawn to this fall. And so I pulled it out of the deck and have it sitting outside on my altar just so that I can look at it and reflect on that energy and scry into the card, even because these cards are so detailed. So there's so much that you can look at and that you pick up from different little views of it, that it was the perfect thing to have out. It could be serving as inspiration for meditation or bringing that archetype into the space with me and just having it there. So that is another great way. I also laid some other cards out that I just felt really drawn to and whose energy I felt that I have been needing lately. So it was really helpful to go through this whole deck and be intentional and say, which cards am I really needing? And this is a deck that I probably will try to keep whole, as in not misplace some of the cards, just because I do think that I want to work with this eventually when I feel drawn to read with it in the future. It's just right now I don't feel that pull towards it. So having the specific cards that I am drawn to right now out and in my line of vision is really great for me. So that is how I use the Margaret Peterson Tarot. I also have really been called to use the guidebook. So I usually keep the guidebook in with this deck, but it's felt so powerful to me lately that I have taken it and have been carrying it around with me lately. So I think I'm going to do another video about which guidebooks I think are fantastic and well worth having, but that'll be in another video. Another way that I use tarot decks that I'm not feeling drawn towards using for divination is as bookmarks. These cards are beautiful, and it's so exciting and fun to kind of pick a card that either matches the colors of the book or that match the energy and vibe of the book or the aesthetic or the genre even. So if I were picking a card for Ship of Destiny to use as a bookmark, now you know that this is always in rotation, so this deck doesn't really get used for that stuff, but it does get used for another thing, so I'll explain that in a little bit. But I would just go through the deck and look for the cards that I felt really drawn to when thinking about this book. So I have a couple here. I think that this book, this is a reread book. So I have read Robin Hobb's Ship of Destiny in the past and am starting to jump back into it. But I think that the Curandera of Water really fits the energy just because this is such a strong watery card. And these take place in a seaside town and also on a lot of merchant ships. So this would be perfect for the energy and atmosphere of the deck. I think if we're trying to match kind of the colors up, that the Nine of Fire would work really well because you've got that reddish pink from the bricks also in the book and the flowers and everything like that. This just fits color-wise. And then this one definitely fits energy-wise for me, strength, because all of the characters in this book have to go within and find that inner strength to continue and to carry on and to go through the hardships that they are facing. And this card just feels like a very thematic card for this book. So I would just take the card and put it in wherever I'm reading and just use it as a bookmark and keep it safe there. Another way that I use tarot actually came from the Tarot Playbook book. And that is the making your to-do list out of your tarot deck. And I showed this in my previous video in the Tarot Playbook, kind of like play these activities with me. But I think that this is a great way to utilize decks that you aren't finding as much use for, is just taking the cards that you need that represent kind of your to-do list, and instead of writing out a to-do list, taking these cards out of your deck and bringing them along with you, maybe putting them in your planner, so that when you have the layout that you need, you can just use these to remember what you need to do. And you can take these along with you. I have, in the past, I don't know, a couple of days, stuck them where I needed them most, or I would take these cards out the night before to lay out what I wanted to do for the day and what I had to get done. And then I would put them right next to my alarm clock. And then when I woke up in the morning, I'd take these cards, look through them, order them about of which tasks I wanted to get done in the specific order, and then take them around with me. And once I had finished each task, I would just go and put it back in the deck. So using it as your makeshift to-do list is a great way. I actually have ordered another copy of the Herb Crafters Tarot that is pre-used, pre-owned, pre-loved, so that I can take the cards out of that deck and use them for the specific purpose, because I love this deck so much and I don't want to separate these cards so much. It makes me nervous, kind of. So I'd much rather have a backup copy that I use only for my to-do list, and that I can take specific cards with me throughout the day and put them in my planner and not worry so much about losing them, because I have this deck for the divination, and then I'll have the other one for laying out on my altar and using as kind of my to-do list. The final way that I repurpose my tarot decks is by making mini readings out of them. This is the Wonderland Tarot, I think it's called. It's the Llewellyn Alice in Wonderland Tarot. I really enjoy the deck, but I hate Alice in this deck. I hate the way that she looks, so I just can't get past that. I think that she looks like a grown woman. It's so confusing. Her face just looks kind of old, so I just can't bring myself to read with this deck. And I actually have a different tarot deck that I like better for Alice in Wonderland. It's the Tarot in a Tin Wonderland Tarot. I think it's by US Games. That one is the one that I much prefer. It is my Alice Tarot. So I already had this deck and didn't want to rehome it, and thought that this would be a great way to do it. So I actually shuffle the cards and will pull a card and write a reading. And I'll put a post-it note on the card. So I write the message down on a post-it note and stick it onto the card, and then you can give these readings out to someone specifically if there's kind of a reading that you feel is either meant for them or a message that you think will help someone else. You can do that. You can kind of stealth deliver readings in little secret places that you have for either yourself to find or for someone else to find. If they are like an encouraging message or something like that, you can do that. So that's what I've done. And I think that that is the last way that I have used and repurposed tarot decks when they no longer have a home in my divinatory space. So that's about it. Thank you so much for watching. I feel like filming this video was complete chaos. I sure hope that my editing has made it a little bit better, but we'll see how that goes. That's it, and I hope you're all having a great November.